Hello and welcome to Tech Talks with Kinsoft.
Hey there.
This is the show where we unpack the latest shifts in technology, security, and digital resilience, really just to keep you ahead of the curve. I am your host, and I have to say, just looking at the headlines from the last few weeks,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, 2026 has just decided not to ease us in gently at all.
No, definitely not.
It feels like the digital landscape just woke up and chose violence this year.
It is great to be here, and you're absolutely right about that. If anyone thought the cybersecurity turbulence of late 2025 was just going to plateau or calm down,
Right.
well, January 2026 has effectively shattered that illusion. It has been an absolute roar of activity, specifically right here in Australia. We are seeing a shift in targets, a shift in tactics, and honestly, just a massive shift in the sheer volume of incidents.
Exactly. And usually, when we open the show with a statement like, it has been a busy month in cyber, we are about to dissect an absolute disaster.
Usually, yes.
But I want to flip the script a bit today. I want to start with a story that, well, it's terrifying in its potential, it is actually a massive win.
A rare thing these days.
Very rare. Or at least it's a masterclass in how to stare down a barrel and not blink. We really need to talk about Regis resources.
I was really hoping we would start there. The Regis case is practically the only thing industry insiders are talking about right now.
I bet.
It is the perfect case study because it completely defies the usual narrative of, big company gets hit, big company pays ransom, big company issues a very sad public apology.
Right. Let's set the stakes for the listeners who maybe haven't dug into their financials recently. Regis Resources is a massive Australian gold producer.
Massive.
And when I say massive, their quarterly report just dropped. They announced a record quarter with a cash and bullion build of $255 million.
Which brings their total balance to $930 million.
Nearly $1 billion in liquid assets and gold just sitting on the books. That is not just a balance sheet. That is basically a neon sign for every single threat actor on the dark web saying, open for business.
Precisely. In the criminal ecosystem, a pot of gold that size, literally and figuratively, it attracts the apex predators. So in November 2025, they were targeted.
Right.
But the public really only learned the details in January 2026 once the dust had settled.
And here is the twist that I just love. Usually when a billion-dollar company gets hit by ransomware, we see a massive insurance claim and some quiet, under-the-table payout.
Always.
But Regis didn't pay a cent.
Yeah.
No data was exfiltrated. Operations just kept running. It's almost like watching a heist movie where the bank vault actually does its job.
It is incredibly rare. And what we are going to do today is tear apart exactly how they did that. Because it wasn't magic, and it definitely wasn't luck. It was architecture. And we also need to pivot from there to discuss why these access failures are effectively replacing traditional hacking as the primary threat vector. And we'll look at the absolute carnage of January 2026 to see why so many other companies failed exactly where Regis succeeded.
Let's get right into the crime scene then. Who exactly was knocking at their door?
The group is called Lynx. If you follow the threat intelligence feeds, you definitely know them. They have this really bizarre branding where they claim to be ethical ransomware operators.
Ethical ransomware. I always find that pitch just hilarious. It is like a mugger leaving you bus fare. We robbed you, but we did it politely.
It is a fascinating psychological play on their part. They claim they don't target hospitals or nonprofits or critical infrastructure because those sectors are quote-unquote vital.
But generous of them.
Right. They frame their extortion as a dialogue or a security audit fee.
Wow. A security audit fee.
But make no mistake, they aggressively target high cash flow businesses like mining because they know the liquidity is there. They saw that billion-dollar balance sheet and they moved in.
Okay, so Lynx lists a Regis subsidiary, McSillam Gold, on their leak site. They're fully expecting a massive payout. But Regis holds the line. You mentioned architecture earlier. Break that down for us, because once malware is actually inside the perimeter...
the game is usually over.
Exactly. How did they stop the bleed?
It really came down to two things: speed and segmentation. First, their automated detection systems were perfectly dialed in. They identified the intrusion anomalies almost immediately.
Wow.
We aren't talking days here. We are likely talking minutes. The system automatically slammed the blast doors shut, restricting access and isolating the infected network segments.
Which is standard procedure on paper, but rarely executed that fast in the real world. But the real savior here was the backup strategy, right?
The air gap. And I know we throw that term around a lot in tech circles, but we really need to appreciate the discipline required to actually maintain an air gap in 2026.
That is exactly what I wanted to ask you about. In a modern corporate environment where we want real-time analytics, seamless cloud integration, instant data availability everywhere, true air gapping, which is keeping backups physically or logically disconnected from the network, that is a logistical nightmare.
It is.
It feels almost archaic. How do you balance that level of security with operational efficiency?
That is the million-dollar question, or in this case, the billion-dollar question. You are right. True air gapping creates friction. It slows things down. But Regis proved that the friction is just the price of survival.
Yeah.
They had backup copies of their data that the ransomware simply could not touch, period. When the malware tried to crawl laterally through the network to encrypt the recovery points, it just hit a dead end.
So they didn't even need the decryption key from links because they already had a clean slate ready to go.
Exactly. They wiped the infected servers and restored from the clean offline backups. And the result really speaks for itself. Despite a massive, highly sophisticated attack, they produced 96,600 ounces of gold in that exact quarter.
That is incredible.
Operational impact was effectively zero.
That is the only metric that matters at the end of the day. But this brings me to a broader industry trend I want to explore. Why mining? I mean, obviously the money is there, but structurally, mining feels like it should be so much harder to hack than, say, a digital bank. It is rocks, dirt, and big trucks in the middle of nowhere.
See, that is the common misconception. Mining is actually currently sitting right in the middle of a perfect storm of vulnerability. It is all about the convergence of IT and OT operational technology.
The classic IT and OT friction.
It is the biggest headache in the industrial sector right now. You have these modern mines that are incredibly automated. They're pushing gigabytes of data to the cloud every second for yield optimization and predictive maintenance.
Sure.
But the physical machines actually doing the work, the crushers, the conveyor belts, the processing plants, they are often running on industrial protocols that are 30 or 40 years old. Things like Modbus and Profibus.
Right. Protocols that were designed before the public internet was even a consideration for businesses. They were built strictly for reliability and not security. They have no encryption, no authentication. They just blindly trust whatever commands they receive on the wire.
Exactly. They were never, ever meant to leave the local closed loop. But now, in the name of efficiency and cloud analytics, we are plugging these medieval systems straight into modern internet-connected networks. We are basically putting a state-of-the-art smart lock on a wooden castle gate that has rusty hinges.
That is a terrifying image. And then you add the geography factor to it. Regis operates in the Dupton Belt in Western Australia. These aren't sites you can just drive IT support out to in an hour if a server crashes.
That is the kicker. These sites are remote, extremely remote. They absolutely require remote access for daily maintenance. You have vendors, external contractors, and systems engineers logging in from Perth, from Sydney, maybe even from overseas. Every single one of those remote access points is a potential door. And if you have a legacy protocol sitting completely undefended behind that door, once an attacker slips in, they can move through the physical infrastructure incredibly fast.
Which segues perfectly into the access failure concept I wanted to discuss today.
Yeah.
When we talk about these major corporate breaches, the popular image in everyone's head is still the movie hacker, right?
Oh, yeah, the guy in the hoodie.
Exactly. Someone writing custom code in a dark room to exploit some unknown zero-day vulnerability in a firewall.
Yeah.
But that is not really the reality anymore, is it?
Almost never. There was a fantastic report by Tenable that came out recently that really crystallizes this shift. They argue that the era of the hacker breaking down the digital wall is ending. We are now firmly in the era of the access failure.
Meaning they aren't breaking in, they are just logging in.
Precisely. They're finding valid keys. Tenable's research shows that the vast majority of Australian breaches aren't sophisticated technical exploits at all. They are simply failures of identity governance.
Wow.
We are talking about forgotten passwords, exposed API keys accidentally left in public code repositories, or service accounts that should have been deleted 3 years ago when an employee left.
Oh, service accounts are the silent killers. You know how it goes. You spin up a quick bot to do a data transfer. You give it full admin rights because you just don't have the time to figure out the specific granular permissions it needs.
Yep, happens all the time.
And then 5 years later, that bot is still running silently in the background with a password like admin123.
And that is exactly what the industry calls toxic clutter. As companies rapidly move their operations to the cloud, the sheer number of identities, both human users and machine accounts, is just exploding. Secrets management becomes literally impossible for humans to do manually.
It's too much data.
Way too much. Tenable points out that to a security system, a hacker using a valid stolen API key looks exactly like a legitimate automated process. The alarm doesn't ring because the key fits the lock perfectly.
It is the digital equivalent of leaving the house key under the doormat and then wondering why the home alarm didn't go off when the burglar just walked through the front door.
It really is. And unfortunately, while Regis somehow managed to keep their keys incredibly safe, the rest of the corporate landscape in January 2026 wasn't so lucky.
Yeah, let's look at the scoreboard for a minute because it is pretty grim reading. I was looking through the Black Fog report for January, and the numbers are just staggering.
They are 91 publicly disclosed ransomware attacks just in the month of January. And remember, those are just the ones we actually know about because of disclosure laws. The real number behind the scenes is likely much, much higher.
And the sector breakdown was super interesting to me. It wasn't finance sitting at the top of the list.
No, it was healthcare. Number one, with 27 separate incidents, followed closely by government agencies and manufacturing.
Healthcare being top is always just devastating because the leverage there isn't just financial. It is literally people's lives.
Yeah.
But we had some major local hits here in Australia, too. Presura, the big insurer, got hit really hard.
That was a highly significant breach, about 300,000 customers affected. And this brings us right back to the inherent value of raw data. The attackers accessed names, policy info, and travel details.
Travel details.
Yeah. Now, they didn't get credit card info, which the company pushed as the silver lining, but think about what a smart attacker can do with detailed travel itineraries.
Oh, it is prime fishing fuel. If I get an email that knows exactly where I just flew, what dates I was there, and what my specific insurance policy number is, my skepticism drops to zero instantly. I am absolutely clicking that link.
Exactly. It allows for highly targeted, incredibly convincing social engineering. And we had the Victorian Department of Education breach.
That one really bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
Unauthorized access to student names, personal emails, and crucially, encrypted passwords. Now, I have heard people online say, oh, it's fine, the database was encrypted, they can't read the passwords. But we really need to bust that myth right now.
Please do. It drives me crazy.
Just because a password is encrypted or hashed in a database doesn't mean it is safe, especially if the hashing algorithm is old or weak, or if the passwords weren't properly salted with random data. If an attacker actually downloads the encrypted file, they can just use rainbow tables or massive GPU server farms to brute force crack those passwords entirely offline at their own pace.
Especially if the students or staff were using common, weak passwords. The word password with a 123 at the end, even when encrypted, is still easily cracked in seconds.
Exactly.
And the real danger there is credential stuffing. People reuse passwords everywhere. If an attacker cracks your school portal password, they're immediately going to run a script to try that exact same email and password combination on your banking app, your personal email, and your social media.
It is a cascading failure across a person's entire digital life. And then there was the Laidley Family Doctors breach, which was targeted by the Anubis Group.
Anubis is nasty. They perfectly represent the double extortion tactic that really dominated the January threat landscape.
Right. So let's clarify double extortion for you listening. This is where the backup strategy we just praised Regis for potentially falls short if you aren't extremely careful about your perimeter.
Correct. In the old days, say 5 years ago, ransomware just encrypted your machine in place. If you had good backups, you just ignore the ransom, wipe the drive, and restored.
Simple.
But double extortion means they steal a copy of the data first, then they encrypt the local machines. So you might restore your servers from your pristine air-gapped backups and be back online in an hour, but the hacker is still holding a copy of your private patient records, your student data, or your corporate trade secrets on their own servers.
And they threaten to publish it to the dark web if you don't pay up.
Exactly. So the ransom isn't actually for the decryption key anymore. It is a hush payment. It's pure blackmail.
Right.
This is exactly why the access failure theory is so critical right now. You have to stop them from entering and exfiltrating data in the very first place. Once the data leaves your building, your backups cannot save your reputation.
Honestly, this feels overwhelming. I mean, we are describing a landscape where you have legacy machines that literally cannot be secured by modern standards, cloud complexity that hides open doors and millions of lines of code, and attackers who are silently stealing data before you even know they're on the network. If you are a board member listening to this, What is the actual move?
The move is a fundamental mindset shift. Governance is the new firewall. The security experts are making this very clear. This is no longer an IT support ticket. It is a boardroom issue.
So what specific questions should the board be asking? Because just asking the IT guy, are we secure, is a totally useless question.
Totally useless. The question they need to be asking is, what is our identity inventory? Do we actually know every single human and every single machine script that has a valid key to our front door?
Okay, actionable advice time. We have talked a lot about the problems. What are the tangible solutions for companies in 2026?
3 main things. First, exactly as proven by Regis. Air gap your backups, but you have to do it intelligently. Use immutable backups in the cloud. That is storage that literally cannot be overwritten, modified, or deleted for a set retention period, even by someone with top-level admin credentials.
Oh, that's smart. So that protects you from the road credential issue. Even if a hacker perfectly steals the head of IT's password, they physically cannot delete the backup files.
Exactly. The system won't let them. Second, least privilege. It sounds incredibly boring, but it is absolutely vital. Why does the summer marketing intern have admin access to the finance server?
They shouldn't.
Right. Why does that third-party HVAC vendor have 24/7 remote access to the network when they only do maintenance on the second Tuesday of the month? Lock it down, only give access when it is needed, and revoke it immediately when it's not.
Convenience really is the enemy of security. We say it on the show every time, but it just keeps proving true.
It does. And third, continuous discovery. You cannot protect what you do not know exists. You need automated security tools that are constantly hunting through your own network for exposed credentials, shadow IT applications that employees installed without asking, and forgotten API keys. You basically need to find the keys hiding under the mat before the hackers do.
It is like treating your digital environment like a physical mine site. In mining, they have these strict zero-harm safety policies. They inspect every harness, every vehicle, every single day before shift starts. Regis essentially applied zero harm to their data environment. They treated data toxicity with the exact same respect and fear that they treat cyanide in the gold extraction process.
That is the perfect analogy. That cultural translation from physical safety to digital safety is what saved them. They operationalized cyber safety at every level of the company.
Well, before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, or maybe it's more of a warning. We are deep into February 2026 now. We have seen the stats from January. Where is this cat and mouse game going next?
AI. It is the absolute elephant in the room. We are seeing artificial intelligence being integrated into everything for corporate efficiency, but the attackers have access to the exact same tools. We are standing on the precipice of a massive automated wave of AI-driven social engineering. Deepfakes. Real-time voice clones. We are already seeing the early warning signs of it out in the wild. If I am an attacker and I can't hack your password because your company has good hygiene and immutable backups, I will just call you on the phone and I will sound exactly like your CEO.
Oh, yeah.
Or exactly like your spouse. And I will casually ask you for the access code.
That is just terrifying. It means that zero trust isn't just a software architecture setting anymore. It has to become a literal life philosophy.
Yeah.
Verify everything.
Skepticism is your absolute best defense going forward. If your boss calls you out of the blue and asks for an urgent wire transfer or password reset, hang the phone, call them back immediately on a known, trusted internal number. The human firewall has to become much harder to break than the digital one.
Well, on that slightly paranoid but absolutely necessary note, we're going to wrap things up for today. It is crystal clear that whether you are sitting on $1 billion of physical gold or just a database of customer emails, the rules of engagement have completely changed this year.
They definitely have. But as Regis showed us, preparation pays off. You can survive the worst-case scenario if you have the architecture and the strict governance already in place.
Exactly. Look, if today's discussion about access failures, identity governance, and the sheer mess of the January threat landscape has you looking at your own systems a little differently and maybe sweating just a little bit, please don't leave it to chance.
Definitely not worth the risk.
Go to www.kinsoft.com.au to discuss your security and IT needs. The team there really understands the nuances we talked about today. From setting up immutable air gapping to conducting a full identity inventory, they are the folks who know how to lock the doors properly, so you do not end up as a cautionary statistic in next month's Black Fog report. Again, go to www.kinsoft.com.au.
Stay safe out there.
Thanks for listening to Tech Talks with Kinsoft. Catch you next time.